It's time once again for another round of our favorite game around here. It's called Was It Great or Were You 8? We love these. We get to go back and revisit films we love from our childhood to see were they truly great or do we just remember them fondly through nostalgia. It's Alonso's turn to pick, and he chose Logan's Run from 1976.
When the tiny crystal in the palm of your hand flashes its final message, your time is up.
Run, runner! This is a movie I did not see in the theater, but it came on TV really quickly because there was a spin-off TV show very promptly after the release of this film. So like it popped up. This was, all right, kids, before cable, there were 3 channels, 3 major networks and a few, odds and ends and PBS. And when a movie premiered on network television, it was a big fucking deal. Mm-hmm. And so, this was like within it. Usually it was like a couple of years for like a big hit, a theatrical hit to make it to network TV. But this was like within the year because CBS launched a Logan's Run TV series. This movie stars Michael York. He is a Sandman in a futuristic society. And the Sandman basically are the cops who stop people who try to escape from the perfect domed city where everybody lives a lovely life of leisure and sex and brightly colored outfits until they turn 30. And when they turn 30, the jewel in their palm turns red and they must renew themselves through the fiery ritual of carousel. At least that's what everybody's been told. But Logan, after capturing a runner, finds out from the computer that kind of runs everything that nobody really gets renewed through carousel, that it's a sham. And so he is also then given a sped up clock and given a red palm jewel so that he can infiltrate these this group called Sanctuary and find out like what's going on with these rebels who are trying to escape the city and flee to this other place. Jenny Agutter is the woman who is smitten with him and joins him in this quest and is in with the underground. But eventually the two of them have to fend for themselves as they head out into the big scary outside world, chased all the while by Logan's friend turned nemesis, Francis, who is another one of the Sandmen. This is 70s sci-fi at its most 70s in so many ways. In the book, the characters die at 21, but in 1976, people didn't think you could cast enough people, box office names, to do it that young, so they made it 30. Oh, how times have changed. There's a cool premise here, if you don't think about it too much. There is this very kind of sort of cool futurism where like, lasers give you instant plastic surgery and like, a precursor to Tinder is this thing that teleports people into your apartment so you can fuck them, Or
not, or send them back where they came from.
Or not, exactly. You can swipe right, as it were. But then, yes, eventually, Logan and Jessica make their way very complicatedly out of the city and into the wilderness, which they've never encountered for the first time. And they make it to the rotting remains of Washington, D.C., where they find an old man played by Peter Ustinov. And they've never seen one of those either. Or the house cats that he's got a ton of. And he does a lot of quoting from T.S. Eliot. So way before the Cats musical, Logan's Run was there with Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats. Logan's kind of an asshole because like he infiltrates the underground, but he also reports on the underground. So he gets all these people killed, but he manages to survive. And then they have to come back and sort of tell everybody, no, carousel is a lie. And, and I don't understand how this society even works. Like, what's the point of all these people to live to be 30 if nobody produces anything? Like, no one is farming, no one is creating anything. And so it's like, well, then what do the computers need the people for in the first place? It's not like they get turned into Soylent Green or something. Like I don't understand the world of this movie, but it's kind of cool if you just sort of like skim the surface of it.
I thought the people did become food. I thought that was the whole thing with the robot of Roscoe Lee Browne, where they're all frozen.
Yeah, but he keeps them all. It's not like he turns them into sustenance. Like, yeah, he talks about how he's got fish and plankton from the sea, but there isn't any anymore. So now he freezes the people. But you never understand that the people leave him frozen and go to some kitchen somewhere. Like, I think he just keeps them.
They don't connect those dots.
Yeah, if that is what happens, they don't make that clear enough.
So I love that you picked this. And this is exactly why I love this recurring thing that we do. Because Logan's Run's a movie that I remembered as being like really terrifying and really stressful, and remembering it as, okay, this was definitely a precursor to a lot of dystopian YA, like The Giver, like Divergent,
Hunger
right?
Games.
Where like it's putting fear into young people of this is what society could be like if it were bad, right? Like it's thrilling, but it's also got some measure of intelligence about it. But I feel like this definitely came along before all of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so it feels very familiar. In retrospect, I remember so vividly as a kid watching it on TV, the thing with the Ankh on the screen, like that whole voice. Sanctuary. What do you know about the Ankh and Sanctuary? Like that scared the shit out of me when I was a little girl, like seeing that symbol and hearing that voice, and it all sounds so calm but eerily so.
Your
like,
answer does not compute.
Completely. And then the way like all the machinery
short
erupts,
circuits. Yeah.
Right. You know, and he and the lighting is all red on him, and he's in this little cage answering the questions. Like everything about that seemed really terrifying to me. And now watching it as an adult, as a film critic, I thought it looked super cheesy. I realized in its day, a lot of the effects were very high tech. The whole thing with Carousel, like that had never been done before, as far as like, there's no CGI back then. Like that's with
like holograms
wires
or something. Yeah.
Right. It's like people on wires, but I think like it got nominated for 2 Academy Awards, this movie.
Yeah. This movie came out the year before Star Wars, which really changed the game of sci-fi for the next, who knows how long. But yeah, this was the kind of thing you would get before then.
Yeah, this is nominated for cinematography and for art direction. And all of it is so obviously a mall. Like actually a lot of it is it's a Hyatt in Houston, and it's the
merchandise
Dallas,
mart in Dallas.
It's the Dallas Market Center where we got our bedroom furniture like 26 years ago. We still have it. The Dallas Market Center is like a big kind of, it's like a big wholesale like furniture and design place where like, people who have boutiques go and get their stuff.
Yeah,
anyway,
like the Pacific Design Center in LA is comparable
it's like
to
a big mall for
Yeah.
like rugs and stuff, but it's very specific in its look, right? And the fact that like people's little sexy Grecian toga gear is like matching up with whatever color is on their hand, and it's all kinds of side boob, and the love room they have to go through to escape, and they're all having orgies, and it's so 70s in that regard. The whole like free love idea of it seems very, very of its time,
but weirdly progressive in a way, in that like it is taken for granted that if you turn on the channel, you might get someone of your own gender, whether or not that's something you were looking for.
That's true.
And then later when Jessica steps out of the thing and then doesn't want to sleep with Logan, he's like, oh, do you prefer women then? And in a very non-judgmental way. And for the 70s, that was usually like, this was still when that kind of thing was like the butt of a joke, or like, ew, gross. And the movie's very chill about that. And I distinctly remember that as a kid being like, oh, like in the future, this is going to happen and no one's going to care,
Yeah, no, yeah, that is very matter of fact. That is true. It's not very judgmental really about anything at all. And I think the idea of worshiping youth is still so relevant today, as evidenced by like Farrah Fawcett, like one of her first big film roles.
Yeah.
She's not great in this, but she looks the part of like the receptionist at the plastic surgery center.
Yes. Would absolutely look like a Breck girl.
Yeah, she looks amazing. And so I do like a lot of the look of the different places in the mall as world.
Yeah.
The plastic surgery, they're all dressed in Skittles colors, and just the idea you could like go in and get a new face, and like it heals so quickly that you don't need to actually
There's
heal.
no bandages. Yeah.
Yeah, no, so I think that all feels very like ahead of its time.
And the miniatures of the sort of exterior with like the little, cars zipping around the little tunnels reminded me so much of like the first iteration of Disney World. Because I went when I was a kid, when I was in like 1973, it had just opened. And the whole idea of like taking a monorail and going through that hotel, but to get to the park, felt like so much the future. And that's what this movie is, that same thing where those buildings look like they could be like, Disneyland hotels and the little monorail-y things and stuff. It was like, this is like so 1970s futurism. Is
It is, but watching it, it felt very obvious to me that these are models.
Oh, well, yeah, no question.
Right. Looking at it now, it looks really, really dated in retrospect. Like it looks very cheesy. Even like the opening push into like the exterior of the domes, it looks like a bunch of like bubble wrap on AstroTurf, So,
it's like,
but it's was very high tech.
It's a model you would see at an architect's office, on a table somewhere.
Completely. I love when they go outside and they see the sun and they're like, what is it? I don't know. And then they're sitting there. This is all Malibu, by the way. All the outside stuff is Malibu. And on the underwater, like that's all a sewage plant in El Segundo. They see the Washington Monument. They see Congress, and it all feels very Planet of the Apes to me.
Yeah.
The same kind of like, what have we done to our planet? All of that.
Well, it's funny because like that, I was reminded of, have you ever seen the original The Time Machine with like Rod Taylor and Yvette Mimieux?
No.
They play it on TCM a lot. There's a whole thing where he goes into the future and he is aghast. It's like, these old buildings are all covered in ivy, and he picks up a book and it just like, all the pages just like turn to dust. Like no one in this future society reads or is educated or anything. And there's a little bit of that with the Peter Ustinov stuff, who kind of vaguely remembers the idea of what a Congress is and what they did. But again, it's like, I'm not sure what the point this movie is trying to make. Like, is the idea that a life dedicated to sort of pleasure and sensuality is a dead end? Is it that if we allow ourselves to like let computers do everything, this is what we're going to turn into? If this movie is a warning about something, which most dystopian thrillers are, I don't know what the warning is.
Is it about the worshiping youth and worshiping superficiality and how that is bad?
I don't know. Is it about removing women from the childbirth process? Because everything seems to be handled in these sort of like labs where, there's like, nobody is raised by their actual birth parents.
Right.
They're just, it's just sort of all done by a machine. Like I honestly don't know. And so maybe it's all interpreted in how you want to read it, but that doesn't really kind of leave you with much, except that I guess it's bad to be killed at 30 after spending 3 decades doing fuck all. Like, I don't know.
I love the line where they ask Peter Ustinov, those cracks in your face, do they hurt? Like, oh, honey, you have no idea.
And he's wearing obvious makeup is the other thing. Like, not that Peter Ustinov was a spring chicken at this point, but like you can see the putty going on.
He's like Methuselah. And then the very, very end, and they all escape their domed land, and they see him down there like, hello. And they all come and they surround him and they touch his hair and his face.
One woman comes forward and
touches him. Like, little do they know, they listen to him like recite T.S. Eliot for the next 3 hours. Don't get too close. Anyway, I dug it. I don't know that it's great. I mean, this is up to you. This is is it great or is it 8? Like, is it great? You tell me.
I'm going to say not great, but that also doesn't mean that I'm not saying that it's bad either. It's just not great. And it's a fascinating time capsule, I think.
Yeah. It
operates in its own little world. This is an odd duck, and I don't know that it totally works, but it's worth seeing and it's fun. It just doesn't hold up to extended questioning.
I don't think it's great either. And it definitely isn't scary the way that I recall it being, but it's cool looking.
It is cool, yeah.
And I see how influential it is now in retrospect with all of the dystopian YA that has come through in the last 20 years or so.
True, yeah. At one point, Bryan Singer wanted to remake it.
There's been a bunch of remakes in the works for a while, right?
I'm glad he didn't, but I think someone could. I think there's a way to make this movie that would feel more relevant to a contemporary audience in terms of not just how it looks, but what is it saying? Pick one, tell us what the point of this is, because I'm not entirely sure.
All right, you guys, have you watched Logan's Run recently? What do you think about it? Tell us, is it great or not? And be sure to check back for the next one. I get to pick for the next one. I got a couple of cool ones lined up, so come back and see what it is.